I'm a source of knowledge. So I can tell you, well, did it do this? Did it do that? I'll ask all the right questions and get it narrowed down to a certain height, weight. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. And you can talk to me. I am a stranger. You'll never see me again if you don't want to. You'll never talk to me again if you don't want to. But just let it all out. Tell me the truth. I put it all together. And you can interview people several different ways and find out if you're getting your chain yanked. It's not all that hard. You just have a down-to-earth conversation with them. I take copious notes, and I've had a few that are absolutely were yanking my chain.
Yeah.
And so you just go, well, gosh, okay, there's 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back, but okay, I'm educated on you now. And we have ways of keeping track of you in the system. So if you continue to do this, you're just blocked, because
Sure.
there are people that will come back time and time and time again, And I've had some good ones. You can tell when it's teenagers, sitting around on dad's computer when everybody's out for the night,
Sure.
But anyway, it's a fascinating, and I'm very honored to be able to talk to these people. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it. I feel like a therapist sometime, but they've had something that affects them to the core of their very being. I know that sounds like really heavy and trippy, but it's that devastating and that emotionally charging to them that that's the only way you can describe it. Because it's just out of this world. It's just
Sure.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I will be having a conversation with an individual, or perhaps I'm having a conversation in a group, and this will be a serious conversation, and it may be about politics. It may be about the economy. It may be about a type of automobile or something. And then I bring up Bigfoot, and they look at me. Are you really going to do this? Come on, this is a serious conversation. This is the presidential election, and who's going to rule the free world for the next 4 years? And you bring up Sasquatch, and me. I those who know me think, okay, here he goes again. I don't want to say that I'm afraid that they'll think I'm a little off center, because they already know that, and my friends accept that. But then I come back with this. No, wait a minute now. I said, they're saying, so you believe in Bigfoot? And I respond to them. I said, well, I don't know. I've never seen one. I've never heard one. I've heard stories. I've heard first count stories on the Finding Bigfoot show. Your buddy Matt Moneymaker, his old show. And you have to ask those questions. And thousands of people have seen something. I said, I haven't. So what I tell them, I said, I don't know. I think that's open. They said, well, it's impossible. It couldn't happen. I said, are you trying to tell me that there couldn't be something out there in the dense woods that we just haven't stumbled upon yet? I said, maybe it's not maybe it's not even a primate. Maybe it's just an ape. Maybe it's something else, something that we just haven't seen before. And I always give the story about back in the 1960s. There was I forget her name, but she was a researcher, and she was talking about how she saw these gorillas in this certain part of Africa. And she was mocked and ridiculed and drummed out of academia, because everybody knows that gorillas don't live in this part of Africa. They only live in that part of Africa. Years ago, they used to live in this part of Africa, but they haven't been there for probably 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, somebody else went into that area to investigate in the 1960s, and guess what they stumbled upon? A group of gorillas who had no reason for being in that area. So
Jane Goodall.
Thank you very much. I knew she was very famous, but I couldn't think of her name. This was in the 1960s. This wasn't in the 1760s. This was in the 1960s. I was alive. You were alive. Many listening to this podcast were alive. This is not ancient history. This is somebody stumbled upon a creature who was in a certain area that nobody thought they could be in. Why can't that happen here? I mean, even sure, Washington State, very dense. Northern California, the forests up there, very dense. But in Missouri, you live in western Missouri. I live in eastern Missouri. And there are parts of that Mark Twain National Forest that are so dense, anything could live back in there. And people just don't go.
Yeah. Well, that's true. And when you're talking about this will probably answer some of this for some of the people listening. We've been taught since I was in school that great apes in North America cannot and do not exist. They were never here. So whatever someone says, that they're off their rocker. Well, the teachers who taught 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 you have all been brought up and taught that there's no great apes in North America. There's no such thing as Bigfoot. Can't happen. Can't be. There's no fossil record. There's no nothing. So it's got to be something else or active imaginations. Well, you know, when a person who's been taught that these things can't possibly exist sees one, and during that time of the indoctrination of ignorance, as I call it, that these things can't exist, you see one, you hear one, your mind is trying to dissuade you so many ways because it just can't be. But that creates that shock moment. It's just, oh my God, it's got to be a guy in a ghillie suit or any other kind of really ridiculous excuse. And so we've been indoctrinated, and the teachers who are teaching the teachers who teach in college and other areas of higher learning, they're passing that ignorance on to the students inadvertently, perhaps, because they believe what they were told. They believe what they read in their science magazines. And so the ignorance train perpetuates itself. And so that's why I think people are so shocked when something does present itself to them. And that's where the PTSD comes in, when somebody sees something that doesn't exist, they go into a type of shock. What happened? What did I see? This can't be. And then they're affected. If your belief system, religious, evolutionary, or otherwise, is affected to that degree, then they're messed up. They're truly affected. And that's, a lot of those people are the ones I talk to. They want some clarity. I said, you did see something. You were not imagining it. Unless you're smoking dope, you're drunk or tripping on acid. I mean, you come up with all if you're, a psychotic, you're under medication from a psychiatrist, you didn't see something. You saw something. You weren't seeing things. You saw something. And that's where we are right now, is trying to convince people that at least consider the possibility. And within that consideration is also consider the possibility that they may have skill sets that we do not have. We may have had these skill sets once a long, long time ago, but we've invented and created our way out of the necessity of having, our mental skills and our survival skills sharpened and honed, because we have all these other things that we do that do things for us.
And we make the assumption that because we're king of the castle, we're the smartest thing on earth, that we can, if we can't do it, if we can't imagine it, neither can they. We are the top of the food chain, no doubt about that. But we don't have the eyesight of a hawk. We don't have the smell, the ability to smell of a dog. We don't have the ability to do a lot of things that a lot of other creatures have. Some animals have senses that are far more keen than ours. They can do things that we can't even imagine. Yeah.
And they have to survive. Dogs use their sense of smell and sense of hearing. Cats, lions, tigers, you name it. They have to survive in the wild. We have civilized ourselves to such a degree that we're sitting Dutch. We're ripe for the picking if you want to go out into the woods. We have to carry a weapon with us. The animal carries nothing with it. So right there, we're at a disadvantage, mentally, because every time a twig snaps, you're looking around like, oh my God. It's funny, and I take people out a lot that have never been out in the woods. They're fascinated by the subject. But when I get them out in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night, and I've got my thermal camera and maybe a little nightlight, and I'm just saying, just follow me. Every sound, every time a moth farts in the night, they are jumping out of their skin because they're not used to it. They don't need it. We have our nice cozy homes to go to. We live totally differently than any other creature on the planet, obviously, except for dogs and cats because we have pets. But I mean, seriously, we're so out of our element. So no wonder we say these things don't exist, and they can't exist, because it's just a good way of keeping ourselves at the top of the food chain. By the way, we might be next to the top on the food chain if you think about it.
Good point. I know. The one time we went, we went out into the Olympia National Forest in Washington State, and me and my boys went on a night walk to see what we could find. And they said, "You think we'll really see Bigfoot, Dad?" So I don't know. Let's go for a walk and find out. And we walked for a while along a Lake Crescent. And then we stopped. I said, let's just listen. Okay, we've been walking, but you can't really hear things when you walk. Let's just listen. And this was a moonlit July evening. And in that part of the country, it's very cool. I would say it was probably by that time already in the mid-60s at night, okay, even though it was a July night. And I said, listen carefully, boys. What do you hear? And we didn't hear anything. And they said, well, Dad, I don't hear anything. I said, listen very closely. They said, I don't hear anything. I said, do you find that odd? They said, well, I sure don't hear Bigfoot. I said, again, what do you hear? And they said, we don't hear anything. I said, this is a July evening, son. I said, do you hear any owls? No. Do you hear any coyotes? No. Do you hear any whippoorwills? No. Do you hear any crickets? No.
Yep.
And I told them, I said, these animals know when something's around that's the top of the food chain. So maybe we can't see Bigfoot, but maybe as we speak, Bigfoot can see us.
Oh, yeah.
There was nervous laughter, and the boys wanted to go back to the cabin immediately. So we did.
What a bunch of wimps.
But I am here to tell you, Carter, there were not even frogs croaking. Nothing was making a sound. And that's what happens when the top of the food chain is around. Nobody wants to be heard.
Exactly. Well, when you're out in the woods at night, if I'm on an expedition or a night out with a few people, and you're hearing the frogs, the crickets, the birds, whippoorwills, and all the activities, squirrels run around, and then when you're hearing it, and then that stops. Well, they didn't stop when you were there because they know who you are, the other animals in the woods. But when the apex predator, Sasquatch, enters the picture, then everything stops. Then when you're there and it's noisy and you hear all that stuff. I love listening to the frogs by the ponds and stuff. It's just very, very serene and very relaxing. Mm-hmm. When that stops and you're already there and you've made enough racket that they know you're there and they still go on, and then it stops, that's when you need to start paying attention.
That's what happened with us.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, and these are the two questions that people ask me. Yep. Have you seen a Sasquatch? Yes,
I've seen 3 Sasquatch, all at night in thermal gear. Mm-hmm. I have a still photo of one, and it's not vague, although I had to. There was 2 of them standing next to each other. Mm-hmm. The 2 times I was using my thermal video camera, I had just happened to have stopped recording because I was trying to save batteries. And anybody who does this with any